Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
Oh, I forgot my damn line. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
You want to
Just
start
let
over?
That be it. No, it's cool.
What's the line?
Because I didn't want to just do the frickin' do you think she's beginning to suspect anything? Your wife.
Well, I
there was something else
I could have done the Harrison part.
Yeah, you could have. I don't even remember how she said it. I wrote it down on my second page of notes, of course. I had just the... Frank. Madison, Elizabeth, Frank. M-E-F. That's what it was. So, yeah.
And, yeah, well, let's not leave anyone in suspense any longer. At least... Why would they be? They clicked on the link.
Yeah, everybody can see it going in. They know what we're doing.
What Lies Beneath, released July 21st, 2000. I don't expect this to be a popular episode. We chose this one just for us. Because we've been wanting to talk about this movie for a long time. Edward is Truth and I are members of the Michelle Pfeiffer Stan Club. I don't know. We don't have a name for it.
I mean, we don't have any official status, but
so many of us
we're
out
stans.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, we are stans. Absolutely.
We love Michelle Pfeiffer, and this is a great movie. I mean, not to show my hand too soon. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I watched it last a few years ago, probably start of the pandemic. I distinctly remember it must have been 2020 because this is around like one of the times my mom visited, and we started watching one Michelle Pfeiffer movie. I forget what it was. It might have been this one, and then we just like went off on like a full-on Michelle Pfeiffer marathon of just like picking all these movies that Michelle Pfeiffer has starred in that I happen to own.
Nice.
And I recommend it. Michelle Pfeiffer marathon if you ever...
Yeah, by all means, we're going to get into major spoilers, and if you haven't seen the movie, just rent it, stream it. I red boxed it, like find it.
Don't watch the trailer either, because
don't watch the trailer. Okay, we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, well, let's start by talking about that, because that pisses me off. Because this is a long movie. I mean, it's not by today's standards, but it's 2 hours, 10 minutes, and the entire first act is a red herring.
Yeah.
And the trailer, so spoilers, it's all about her husband and something that her husband did. Say that much at this point. We'll obviously get more into it as we unpack the movie. But the trailer for the movie basically is just like his hidden secret becomes like something or other. And it's just like, I don't remember seeing the thing that I remember the most from the trailer, like back in the day, was because she took a photo, and this scene is not in the movie. It must have been like either a deleted scene or a scene that was like purposefully made for the trailer. And it's like her still spying on the neighbors, and she like took a photograph of them, and she's like, does that look like a face in the window or something? Right. And it kind of it leans into like the whole like ghost story aspect of it all. Yeah. But I remember watching the movie and being like, wait, where's that part? Because I thought that would have played a big role into what was going on. And there's some other stuff. There's like a scene of like the daughter before she goes off to school at the breakfast table. None of that was needed. You know, it can be easily excised. But do you?
Yes.
What were you gonna say?
There was in my opinion, there were a lot of mistakes made in the promotion of this film. We can dive into it if you wanted to know about a premise.
I do want to know about a premise.
Okay, yeah, I got one. Okay. How should I read this?
Maybe normal, just because.
Normal, just
because maybe
my trailer voice.
Well, I don't think that's normal, but sure, whatever.
Oh, come on. What, just normal like this?
I don't know. Do whatever. Do whatever you're going to do, you know.
I'll do this. Okay. With their only daughter now in college, the loving couple of Dr. Norman Spencer and his wife former cellist Claire Spencer seem fit to live a tranquil life in picturesque Vermont at their serene and isolated lake house. But after mysterious exchanges with their neighbors and unexplained manifestations around the house, Claire starts to become convinced that a supernatural entity is present. Will Claire's idyllic marriage start falling to pieces if she goes too far to uncover what lies beneath? A little exhaling at the end there. Huh? Okay.
Very nice. Well, before we really get into it, I just want to welcome and thank some new Patreon supporters of mine and the podcast. But say hello to Cowell O'Higgin, and I really hope that I pronounced that right. I looked up specifically online the pronunciation, so I apologize for any incorrectness of any name, but especially that. So Cowell O'Higgin, Nicholas Nero, Callum 66, and Garrison Nichols. So welcome aboard, all new Patreon members. Thank you. And just for anyone new or anyone listening, or just a reminder, if you do want to support on Patreon, it's greatly appreciated, but you also get early access to all of our episodes. You also get access, depending on what tier you're at, Freddy Krueger tier starting there, access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is the Patreon exclusive episode that we do every month. This month we are doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 6. We've already done 1 through 5, and we are going to first watch all the episodes. But then
no, I haven't started yet either.
Neither have I. And then rank them separately because as you know, we can't agree on anything.
Absolutely.
When we do agree on things, it's very surprising. But with Buffy, we do not agree. Because if you've been supporting on Patreon and have watched those episodes, you will know it's a lot. But anyway, that's what's going on there. So take a look, support. It's greatly appreciated. It goes a long way. And also thank you to our editor. Boy Cried Wolf. So thank you. So what lies beneath?
Yeah. So promotionally, everything that you mentioned about the trailer is kind of like what they spoke about openly, which I think is definitely, if you're hearing the way that even Michelle Pfeiffer herself and Harrison Ford are describing the movie in the promotional material, I watched a bunch of vintage interviews for it, and as an audience member, I'm glad I didn't see any of that, because had I would have sat through the first hour or so of the movie going, what the fuck? I thought he was cheating on her. I thought that this was about who is this woman, and and is he a trustworthy guy and everything like that, and there's all this shit with their neighbors, which is good. I mean, it's fine. If I didn't, this is the thing, I thankfully didn't see any of that, but a lot of people did. I think this movie did pretty well at the box office, as far as
certainly cost them a lot of money to make, so I hope so.
Yeah.
Actually, let me look up the budget for this while you're talking.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But the only thing I saw was the trailer, and the only thing that really kind of stayed in my memory, I remember, because I saw this opening weekend, and I remember going to the movies to see it and thinking oh, I'm gonna see there's a ghost in the house, Michelle's gonna get possessed, because that moment, things didn't go viral yet in the year 2000, but but that moment went the equivalent of viral. I mean, it was even parodied in Scary Movie 2. People knew it that well.
And most recently, Chucky season 2.
Right. But it's just so I went in knowing that moment was coming around. So I'm like, oh, okay, so she's going to get possessed. Is it going to be by the house? Is there going to be more than one ghost? Like, what's it going to be? So everything that happened with the neighbors for the first hour, I was like, what is this? And I remember feeling kind of cheated. Yeah. So, and then by the time we got to the nitty gritty of it all, I was kind of bored. And I remember initially my response to this film, the first time I saw it, I was kind of disappointed. I thought Michelle did a great job, but I thought she deserved a better movie. And I honestly maybe saw it one more time, maybe like 5 years after that or something like that. But maybe I only saw it once. I don't remember. So seeing it for this particular pod is either the second or third only time that I've seen it, and things have, I feel like I watch it in a different tone of voice now, if that makes sense. What did you find?
So when you say that, do you enjoy it better now, or you enjoy it less?
Do you remember when
that was a yes or no answer?
Nothing's a yes or no answer with
bring
me.
out my Judge Judy.
Remember when Piper Laurie read Carrie, the script for Carrie, and she was being offered the role of Margaret White, and she read it, and she was like, oh dear God, this is so dire, I don't want to do this. And her husband said, Brian De Palma directs dark comedies, maybe read it again. And she's like, all right. And she read it again and went, oh, I'm supposed to be like larger than life and insane, still connected with something, but this isn't dire. This is supposed to be enjoyable for the audience. Oh, I can do that. So she said yes. I feel like I watch it now, instead of expecting like a horror movie or even a thriller, it feels to me more like a woman's picture, like an outdated term, but like from the mid 20th century, like in the 40s and the 50s, when there would be like a movie starring Susan Hayward or Lana Turner or Joan Crawford. And it would be all about like this woman's kind of, is she spiraling into madness or is she being gaslit? Will she survive kind of thing? And this is like a Michelle Pfeiffer woman's picture,
And it's interesting you say that term, because I feel like movies like that are very timeless, and I think that this is a very timeless movie in and of itself. Just looking at the box office here, so the budget was estimated $100 million, which, like, insane. And this was around the time where, like, because like Hollow Man, that was, I think, like $100 million. I don't even remember. We talked about this. I don't remember if it was on the Cherry Picker or on the old podcast of just like Hannibal, like the Silence of the Lambs sequel was just like a ridiculous amount of money. Like it was ludicrous how much that budget was for what it like turned out. And I mean, I it makes sense with this because I think that like the technology that they were using at the time, which I think really, like, I'm just trying to think of like what was the first movie that really implemented that, and it might have been the Psycho remake of just trying to capture these shots, these impossible shots that Hitchcock always wanted to do, like the beginning of Psycho, of just going through downtown Phoenix and then just going into the hotel window, because like in the original Psycho they had to do the cut, but in the remake they were able to get that shot using digital effects. And I know we definitely saw that in Panic Room, which I think is also a 2000 release thriller. So it was definitely like you can notice it in here, but the thing is, it's just like these effects hold up so well. Whereas I think like a lot of the movies of the time in 2000 where like they would have these effects, you can tell it's like, oh, that's bad CGI, watching it through 2023 lens. And here, it's just everything, it's so seamless. Like some of it does, I mean, if you know about it, it might look a little choppy. Like there's obviously the thing at the end with the body coming up out of the water.
I was gonna say
that did not age well. But like the camera shots that they do, like when she's, one that I notice is like when she's closing the door, and it's just like somehow like the camera zooms by her, and then when she's on the bridge
that was
at the
fun.
end,
and
fun. and the best effect, which I think that they were able to get because they had her on a glass floor when the camera kind of like goes underneath when she's paralyzed and he lifts her up. Because I remember like even like watching that the first time I watched him, like not really thinking like how did they achieve this, because I was so into the movie and just engrossed by the cinematography, that when you watch like the featurettes and the behind the scenes and how they achieved this stuff and the technology that they used, it's very impressive. There's even one shot like when she's driving off at the end, and you know that he's on the boat. And you can see the phone drop because the camera goes like under the car. Like that's all digital effects, obviously, but it's just like it looks so realistic. And even like today watching it, like it really holds up. So if it cost them $100 million to make this, and by the way, I think their worldwide gross, sorry, I didn't tell you that, 291 million. So I mean, they turned a profit. It did well. For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing with this is that it was, I guess like why maybe it wasn't such a big deal to the studio to spoil the movie the way that they did, because it was the stars that were selling the picture. It was the fact that it was Harrison Ford, who's, I don't like the fact that his name is first because he's in a fraction of it compared to her. She's literally in every scene. And then she's
it's a woman's
billed.
picture.
Yeah.
Like his name shouldn't be the name over the title. But I do know after seeing the interview footage that they did that his name was attached before hers ever was. So he likely is the reason it got greenlit in the first place. But working with him, and I believe Bob Zemeckis was attached by the time she was cast. She just knew she wanted to work with that team. She wanted to be a part of, like those people telling that story. And she's a huge horror fan also. Which is another reason why we love her. She's one of us.
Yeah.
But I just I'm so glad to hear you bring up the technical aspects, because I didn't really take a lot of notes on those. I paid more attention to, I think, the stories and the references and the character turns and the performances, as is customary for me. But no, because I did note what yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask, do you know who wrote the screenplay?
No, I didn't even look because it almost seemed fruitless because it seemed like such a Hollywood movie. I was like, surely this has passed through at least 6 hands of writers, like I'm sure it's been doctored and rewritten, but who is it?
Well, there's 2 credits. There's someone named Sarah Kernochin. I don't know if I'm saying that right, who's credited for the story. And she did the screenplay for 9.5 weeks, which I'd never seen. But the screenplay is by actor Clark Gregg.
Oh,
yeah, from probably like most well known for like the Avengers.
Yeah,
playing
Marvel and
Agent Coulson. Yeah.
Yeah, Phil.
Sure.
His name is Phil. That's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s infamous lines. But yeah.
And I don't think that he has any like other major screenplay credits to his name.
I wonder if it was collaborative or if there was a draft that began with. Because I think I remember seeing 2 names, but only one was credited with the screenplay in the movie, like in the actual credits of the film. And then the 2 of them were credited. 2 were credited with the story. 1 was credited with the screenplay in the body of the film.
That's what it says here on IMDb.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess he broke it down by and large for the most part, or at least they were comfortable with him being the one to occupy that credit. Because it didn't feel. That's the only. Okay, we can break it down now. One criticism.
The episode is starting now. Forget everything you heard before.
20 minutes in, we're we're finally gonna get into it.
Yeah.
I wanted to it didn't feel like one cohesive voice to me of the screenplay. Like even the role that Michelle was playing seemed to it wasn't so disjointed that I had trouble following it, but I did notice like there were some moments where she seemed very kind of like funny and just kind of natural and like quirky, and then other moments where she seemed very kind of like classic Hollywood Hitchcock blonde, woman in a big house, white woman peeking behind the curtain, and like I don't know, just very easily distressed and very fragile, and don't go through that door kind of woman. And then like a lot of other variations on that. I think my favorite moments, though, watching her on screen, and it's no surprise, were in her scenes with Diana Scarwid, who most people are probably going to know from Mommy Dearest, or we already talked about Psycho 3.
Psycho
didn't we?
3, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't covered Psycho 3.
Okay,
so technically, this is the first Diana Scarwid.
Ooh, okay.
Feature.
I always love talking about her, but she played adult Christina and teenage Christina Crawford in Mommy Dearest. So another Joan Crawford reference. There's number 2 for this pod so far. But
keep them coming.
But anytime she works, and a lot of time when she plays character roles, when she gets to support the leading lady, I just live for it. And this was no exception. I completely forgot she was in this movie. So when she came on screen, I was just like, why? Oh, really? It was just so nice to see her. And then to see her playing, like, you know, this kind of like broad caricature character actress, you know, kind of like, you know, I've got my hands on my hips and I'm here with witty barbs for you, girl. You know,
playing Jodie. Is the character's name. Well, what is she? Because she just shows up randomly. Because it was after the Claire, Michelle's character. Is it Claire? Yeah. Goes to take the welcome basket to the neighbors, and they're not there, and she comes over, and we don't even see her at first. We just see Claire's reaction to her. She's just like, "Hey, lady, what are you doing?" You're just like, who is she speaking to that way? And then you see Jodie at the door. And what I love about this movie, for me, is just like how lived in everything, like just like the world and the characters within it, and especially with Claire, because you just immediately get the sense, you know who she is. You feel that like she's been in this role for so long. She's played this housewife, and now she's going through this like empty nest syndrome, and the friends and like the characters that pop in and out, like even like the couple that they go meet for dinner, like everything just feels so authentic. Like nothing really, like there's a few, like maybe like the mother of the MEF where that scene felt very Silence of the Lambs to me, but like
definitely
like any character that like had a pre-existing relationship with Norman and Claire, like every time someone came on, or just like the interactions, it just felt real. And that's what like really got me through I think the first act is great. Like I love the whole misdirect of everything in the setup, because it's really painting a picture of who she is. And there's obviously clues that are like put in there. Like it's almost like a little Sidney Prescott circa Scream 1, although because she's in the attic and she's looking through this stuff, and then she finds like the insurance photo for the car wreck, so we already get like the seed planted that something happened there. And then like as the story goes on, I think it was like when Jodie shows up, she kind of briefly mentions, it's just like, well, you know, that it happened a year ago, the car wreck, and you're kind of slowly unraveling this backstory amidst this distraction of her being like, what's going on with the neighbors? There's like a bloody shoe out on the front. They're really fucking weird. Like all that stuff. There's so much going on, and she's just at the center of it, that it's easy to miss some of like the things that they threw out there. But then there are things that I think are kind of sloppy in the screenplay, which is more so like the Chekhov's guns. There's really just one. I mean, there's like two that I picked up on because I remember distinctly from like the previous times I watched the movie. But the one that is like the most awkwardly placed in there is when she goes to see Norman at work in the lab the first time, and she kind of like walks by. Nobody's really acknowledging her. Like I think they do say like, "Hi, Mrs. Whatever Spencer." Yeah, "Hi, Mrs. Spencer," or whatever. But they're like in this conversation. They've got the mouse. They've given it the paralysis agent or whatever. And they're like going deep into like detail about it. And she just sort of walks by and she stops and she looks at it. And she's listening intently. And it's just like, okay, we're focusing on this way too much. It's going to play into it somehow later. Like it was very ham-fisted. And then the other one... No,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
adore that animatronic mouse too. Just want to, or the lab rat. You know,
Yeah.
like you leave it to Bob Zemeckis to find a way to put some, some practical special effects in there, and like I don't know, I
Sure.
appreciated that.
Yeah.
You were gonna say?
And then the other one, which is not really anything. I mean, like they probably could have just taken it all out, and it wouldn't have changed the movie anyway. But it's like the first time when they're going to meet the friends for dinner, and they're going over the bridge, and she has the cell phone, and they're like, "Oh, you have to wait till you get to the middle of the bridge for the service to come back." And then, of course, at the climax of the movie, she's on the bridge waiting for the bars to come onto the phone, and it's just like. There was another thing which I was because I forgot and I was fully expecting, because the first scene of the movie is when she kind of wakes up out of the bathtub, and then she takes the hairdryer and she's trying to defog the mirror, and I'm like, oh, is this what it's going to come back later? She's going to do the same thing, but there's going to be a ghost standing behind her, and that never happened.
It was just to establish that they were having power failure in the house, which, I mean, again, as far as atmosphere, like that'll creep me out. Like just thinking the power's go, because I remember the first time I saw it, I can watch it and go back to the first time and just think like, oh, the power's going out. Is something fucking with the power? And but I also thought like, what a nice hack. I've never used that before, like putting a hairdryer. I always wipe, with like a towel or something, or open the door so all the. Have you ever done that? Hairdryer to the mirror to try and see yourself?
Probably. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I mean, I have a window in my bathroom, so it's
I prefer it that way.
And I mean, like I live alone, so I just shower with the door open anyway, so it doesn't really get too foggy. Plus, I take really cold showers now, so I'm like going into like all this great detail about my.
Well, okay. How long are the showers, Zach? Inquiring minds want to know.
I don't know, 5-10 minutes. Is that too long?
I love that you're answering. I know. Also, there was another thing that I was like, that I did kind of appreciate that was established early on. Like a lot of things that just seem very cinematic and sometimes almost literary. You know me, I love a page up on a screen in terms of like I feel like I'm reading a book. And there were things like the parallels of that they had kind of set up. So you're starting to wonder, is there going to be a transference, like some kind of like identification that she's supposed to be experiencing, and almost synthesis with her neighbor, her female neighbor, because they're about Claire, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Harrison Ford Norman are about to like get it on, and their windows are open, and then all of a sudden they hear their neighbors making love ecstatically, shall we say, vocalizing. And Michelle gets to do another one of those great mugs where she just drops her jaw and her eyes bug out. She's like, oh my God. But what is he doing to her? But and then she wants to, she kind of, I don't know, she's kind of into it. She's kind of like, okay, let's compete with them. Let's give them something to scream about or whatever. And then like, I think it's the next day, or is it the next day? I can't really remember the sequence, but at some point, like, she's crying because her daughter, has gone to college and everything like that. And she's just kind of like weeping alone at the house. And then she hears her neighbor like crying out even louder, akin to the sex thing, and goes over to try and stops crying and starts to investigate like what is going on over here. All of that felt very Hitchcock. There were a lot of allusions to Hitchcock in here. Like there was the Rear Window thing with her, spying on her neighbors unbeknownst.
And I should also say they're all done very well. Like this is this does feel like a very modern day Hitchcock movie. And they even talk about like, like I said before, like just the camera techniques, and like if that technology had existed when Hitchcock was around, like he would have absolutely used that. He would have done that psycho transition through the window thing.
Sure.
So it's almost unfortunate that, I mean, it's not unfortunate because Hitchcock is of the era that he came out of. But
and it still works.
Absolutely. It just would have been interesting to see how he would have made movies today if he were around now. But that's it. It all kind of like lends to just like the mystery of everything, just like setting up at the beginning there, and that transference that you're talking about, and the meeting of the neighbor. And I love that we don't even get to see her, because it's just like she's blocked by the fence. You kind of see her eyeball. That was another very psycho thing of just like the eye.
Yeah.
Very psycho too.
Intruding into the frame.
I was gonna say maybe it was Michelle Pfeiffer's eye, because just the way that they used Meg Tilly's eye to create that distortion. But the woman has green eyes and Michelle has blue. But that was another thing that came in, because the ghost had green eyes. It was like, she looks like me, but with green eyes. But no, I like that we didn't get to really like see her. So then like finally, like when we do get to the moment where she has that meltdown and she accuses him in public of murdering his wife, and then she just kind of like stumbles in. She's just like, what's going on here? And I always love his response to her too. It's just like, I didn't kill my wife. Are you okay? Like, are you well? Like leaning in, because you just feel that like public embarrassment for her in that moment. And I love how it just like smash cuts to therapy at that point.
With that actor who's in everything.
Oh,
I
Joe
can't remember
Morton.
his name right now. Joe Morton.
Yeah.
As Dr. Drayton, as her therapist. He's just in everything.
Yeah.
But that was another thing. There were a few shots that I really, really appreciated in terms, as far as like the camera technique and things like that. But one of the first ones that struck me in a way that felt negative, it just felt stilted. But now I feel like it might have been a choice, kind of laying the groundwork we'll get there. But anyway, it's the first scene where. I think it's back to the scene before they hear their neighbors screaming and everything like that. But Michelle is in bed with Harrison Ford. He's got his shirt off. His pecs and abs are on full display. And he seems to be sitting very uncomfortably and awkwardly, like, you know, with his back arched. and you know, like some oils, you know, like rubbed into his shoulders and whatnot. And she's just kind of like laying with her head on his chest, and I've never seen two people look less comfortable with each other in bed in my life, and it felt very for the camera, very presentational. And I was just kind of like, is this, because you know, I had the bad taste in my mouth from the opening weekend, and I was like, is this going to be the whole movie? Is this what it's going to be like? But there were so many other moments where I just kind of felt like, particularly, I don't know, just like where Robert Zemeckis seemed to be almost eavesdropping on what was going on, like when it's after Michelle meets up with their friend, and he's bringing his latest woman that he's dating, and
she says like, "Where's the new squeeze?" And she's like, "I'm right here," and they're like, "Oh my god, it's you!"
Oh my god! Yeah, the voices go up and everything, and it's so cool. But the next shot where they're all kind of sitting together, it's like this, you know, like not terribly occupied restaurant, so they're being a little loud and even going, shh, girls, you know, like ladies, come on. Yeah. But I don't know, and there's this crosstalk going on where the men are talking at opposite corners of the table and the women are talking at opposite corners of the table. Yeah. And
did you hear what they were talking about?
Oh yeah. It was great. I was following both of them. That's why I felt like I was eavesdropping. I was just sitting there going like, as it's slowly dollying in, it felt like the antithesis of that scene in the bed. It just felt so natural. Yeah. And there was another one and I think, when she's sitting there with her therapist, there's this shot in her initial visit, I believe, where it's just, there are two chairs sitting across from each other. They're both in profile, and the chairs occupy opposite sides of the screen. Yeah. And you just sit there, and I would have loved if the whole scene could have just been that shot. Eventually, they do start cutting away into, you know.
Well, it's a very long take until because he kind of like gets the candy bowl and leans over to her, and I think at that point it kind of goes to her before it cuts back to him. So it goes on for a while. Like, you know, she had to memorize stuff, and I love that it was like the room itself is kind of like a semi-basement, and there's like the windows up high. In the first scene where she's in the session, you can see like the people walking by in the background, and then the second one, it's raining. That's why I love this movie too. It's always raining. I love a good rainstorm in a horror movie.
Yes.
But
strategically placed thunder and lightning too. There's a lot of moments where the thunder hits right where it's most effective for the movie, absolutely. And I love that.
And just to the point of the scene you're talking about with like oiled up Harrison Ford. I mean, it's why that probably feels awkward is because it's like it's a woman's picture. You know, we had to like throw Harrison Ford there. He was like 58. At the time of this, so just like looking like a snack at 58. So they're just like, there's gonna be a lot of ladies coming to this movie. We gotta like oil up Harrison Ford and put him
and all the gay stands for Michelle Pfeiffer too.
No, I'm seeing it for Michelle.
No, but I mean, I wasn't objecting. I was like, oh wow, look at you, honey, good for you. But like I'll take that in any Harrison Ford or any movie that Harrison Ford is on screen for. But the reason why I feel like it almost kind of works is also it seems to be setting up this idyllic marriage and relationship between the two of them, and because it's so stilted and so restrained and unnatural, I feel like we're not supposed to relax with them. We're not supposed to feel like oh, I love them as a couple, because I actually wondered on this rewatch, I don't remember being conscious of it the first time, but this time I was wondering, like, do they just not really have that strong of chemistry? Because I'm not getting a marriage for them. And I even felt like Harrison Ford seemed to be a little stilted in his performance. But then once he reveals himself, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, he Skeet Ulrich'd me.
I was just going to say
Billy Loomis.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, it does have a very like Scream, like who's the killer vibe to it, because, you know, even with like Jack Quaid in Scream 2022, it's just like you have this character and like clearly like there's chemistry there and there's a relationship and there's good times, but there's also the way that both like him and Skeet like played their respective roles is to just like there is something off about it. There is just something that is not right and feels weird, but it's just sort of buried in the midst of like everything else that seems normal. I mean, I'd say probably more so with Richie and Scream 5, because like Billy obviously has a lot of fucking moments where it's just like it's so obviously him, but it's not. But yeah, I can definitely see that, and I like that about it, because it does establish like that early on, that it's not going to be like a surprise when it happens. But I think like if I do have a complaint with it, because it is a long movie, and it doesn't it for the most part goes by pretty smoothly. Like there's not really a whole lot of bits and pieces where I'm check out. I don't think I check out once, but probably like towards the end of the second act when it's no longer, when we already know it's no longer about the neighbors. The ghost stuff is like, he's already revealed that like he had the affair, yada yada yada, and now they're just kind of going through like the typical marital woes, and it's more melodramatic than it is like thrilling or anything. That's when I'm kind of like at my lowest point with this movie. And there's one scene in particular where they go sailing. It's like the last sail of the year, and what you just said reminded me of this, because it's just like they're on that sailing trip, and it's just like, this does not seem like a good marriage at all. Like they're just both miserable, and because she calls him out on his, well, she doesn't call him out, but she just like, she realizes because of what Jodie said of like when she saw him with the deceased woman that he murdered in that town. And she's like, oh, have you ever been to Adamant or whatever it was called? He's like, no. And she's like, huh. Like, okay. Like she knows that he's full of shit. And it's one of those things, like she's just kind of allowing it at that point. And that, I mean, I guess I'm okay with it because it is setting up the thing. It's just, it's fun to know that she's prying in that way. By the way, I totally a Cancer. For Claire. I don't know what he would be. I would maybe a Taurus, but no, she's absolutely. This is what we do. This is what we do on the cherry pick. I do at least. You don't really participate
it's the normal,
unless it's a Virgo.
It's the expected practice of Zach Chariot by now. Yeah.
But no, just the whole like the little like the games, just like I know what you don't know, like, but not actually just a very passive aggressive way of like understanding that like, okay, my spouse is lying to me, but I'm not gonna I'm gonna take this information and I'm gonna put it in the bank for later on. That never happened because he tried to kill her, but I mean, like, had that never happened, they would have had another fight like maybe a month later, and she would have brought that shit up. I guarantee it. Even if not a month, like 5 years later.
Well, also, I mean, towards the climax, I don't know if we want to dive into the climax just yet.
We can jump all over. That's what
that's true.
Our listeners / watchers are used to that. With
of course. Well, okay, then towards the end of the climax, I think, because I agree with you, I feel like everything kind of like leading up to the third act is at least the slowest to if there's anything to this movie's detriment as far as moments are concerned, those moments are the ones that kind of slow things down the most. Like, I don't know if I checked out, but I definitely was kind of like, come on. And but once we start getting to that climax and she's making the discoveries, she's swimming down and getting the box and unlocking it, I'm just going like, you're making one mistake after the other. Number one, why are you opening this box in the common area, in your house? Like, take it to a hotel. Go to Jody's. Just like, like there's so many other places you can do this. You should not be doing this in your home with the man who you suspect could conceivably be a killer, and then and then when you discover it, and he like tells you like, yes, I've called the cops and everything like that. You don't call anyone else. You don't like, you need people to know that you are in the house and that he is with you, and and I wouldn't stay. If he's going up and he's taking a shower, I'm out. I'm leaving. Like, let the cops deal with him, and if they don't, then I'm staying in custody. Put me in a cell, do something. She just kind of like makes decisions she has to because the movie has to movie, basically.
No, that's fair. I mean, if I could try to understand the operation of her mind, I would say that. Sorry, another Judge Judaism. I would say that she wanted the marriage to work. She didn't want him to be the killer. So it's just I don't think that she was thinking of like the outcome of him like opening the box and just finding something that was going to show that he was the killer. I think that it was in her mind. It was more so just show me something that tells me he isn't. It was just kind of like wishful thinking and wishful hoping, and her like needing to trust him, and that when he's like, yeah, I called the police, and she obviously didn't, because like, but it that's the problem. It just took her too long to make that realization. I understand it's frustrating and it's not smart, but when is love ever? Well,
that's true.
We call that love.
Love
but,
is dumb.
Yeah.
But I also like, and there were moments that. Another thing that kind of like lent itself to, I think, the camp, which I did not remember. Was a component of this movie that I really appreciate now. Like, down to, we talked about the thunder and lightning, but even just like when she carries that basket of roses, I think, over to the neighbor's porch, and the wind is just, just gusting across the porch, and she's looking through the window, and she's just, just very, very tentatively, like, taking everything in. It just felt so melodramatic to me. It was like a little hug for my heart, but also, then there was something that I feel like was unintentionally funny. I did laugh out loud. It's when she dives in. I think it's when she's possessed by Madison, one of the moments where she dives off the pier while Norman's watching her. Yeah. And she basically kind of Supermans, down toward the box. Like, her both arms are outstretched in front of her, and she is just going in a very unhuman way. Like, no human could ever swim down that quickly. And she just down to the destination.
I wonder if the ghost or the spirit of Madison Elizabeth Frank would have just like left her down there, or like brought her back to the surface. Like, what was her intentions of just like using Claire as a vessel? Was she just going to like magically lift her out, like Evil Dead Rise style, like out of the water, and put her back on the dog?
That would have been sweet.
My okay, if I can pick out a camp moment, it's when it's one of the times where she's spying on the neighbors, and I don't know if it's the time where she's looking through the binoculars and she's just like, where did he go, and then his like face is there and she's like, like he can't see you. You're in a dark room with the lights up. Exactly. It might not have been that moment, because I don't think Norman was home yet, because that's when he snuck up behind her. That was another sign that he was the killer, because every scare, whenever someone like came up behind her, it was always him. But I think it was when he was loading what looked like the body of his wife into the car, and Harrison Ford, Norman, is like sleeping in bed, and she's like, Norman, and then he like Harrison Ford just bursts up in bed like, it's just like the most like not realistic way that a person would like be startled out of sleep. Like it was just like he just jumped up in bed.
Right.
That was a really
not only
like,
in movies do people snap up from the waist when they wake up. Yeah. But also, I mean, I think that was another one of those like choreographed, like premeditated kind of like he's carrying the body, like lightning crashes and everything like that. It was so great. I also just. Oh God, there's so much to cover. But I'm trying to think like where do I want to start with this? I mean, okay, that was another Hitchcock reference that I caught. Also, was just the fact. I mean, early on, I was just kind of like Norman. What a strange name to give him, because it's so associated with Psycho. And then I realized, well, he's a killer in plain sight, who we're not supposed to suspect, but maybe we do. You know, like I mean, so naming him Norman, like okay, cool, I see you, movie. But I also there was something where because there was something in the script that I appreciated. It was, I don't even remember what moment it was in particular, but he was telling her something while she was kind of like spinning her wheels, and he just said like, you always overreact. And she was just like, well, I'll have to watch that, won't I? And I was like, oh, he's gaslighting. Like, no, because that was the one thing that I did remember. I did remember like the big reveal of the movie. I remembered he did it. You know, like he's the culprit that we're supposed to be watching. I remembered like, okay, he killed a woman, covered it up, he had an affair with her, and she's in danger. And I do remember the tub scene, and the thing that pissed me off was that was one thing that got kind of spoiled for me, because I think it was on one of the movie posters at the theater that I saw it at, and I remember it said there one scene rivals the mastery of Hitchcock's shower scene. So I was just kind of like, oh, I guess it must take place in a bathroom. And of course, you know, one of the first places we see her is in a bathroom. And then the tub kept filling up. So I was like, is this the scene? Every time she walked in and saw that tub filled to the brim, I was like, is this the terrifying scene? And
they were in that bathroom a lot.
They were.
Looking here on the trivia on IMDb, it says 5 different versions of the bathroom set were constructed.
Oh, wow. God.
So various parts of the same scene could be filmed at different times on opposite coasts.
Right. It was nice to walk in without expectations for that scene, because once she was in the tub and I saw it, I was just kind of like, oh, this is the scene. And you can't walk into that movie knowing that that's coming, or even knowing that something akin to that is coming, because all I did was sit there waiting for it to psycho, and it didn't. It was, you know, very low, quiet. It was all about tension, drawing it out. And I was grateful to see it again, because I think it works. I do think it actually works, as far because I was sitting there right with her, like, move your toe. Oh my! I'm just getting anxiety talking about it, actually, because anytime, that's like a Virgo's worst nightmare, is like trying your hardest to complete a task and you can't. That gets me. I can feel it. My blood's boiling right now. You have to say things now.
Well, speaking of like houses and Scream as well, did you notice how like similar? It's not the same kitchen, obviously, but how similar the kitchen looked to the Stu Macher kitchen?
No,
the layout it was exactly the same. Like just where like the not the island, but just like the counter partition, and then the cupboards above it, and where the fridge and the stove was. I was just like, for a second, like, is this it can't be, because they're in New England or wherever, and
Right,
that's in
right.
California, on location. But no, it was like it was very similar. The rest of the house isn't, but
No,
that
no.
was just something I noticed. I was just like, oh, that's cool. Um, I
Of
was
course.
going to say just looking through trivia because I'm sure there's so much interesting stuff here, but
Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford were Robert Zemeckis's first and only choices for the
Very
lead
nice.
roles of the movie. And honestly, like I was actually just talking to Eric Champney, one of my Patreon supporters, before this because we were talking about it. And we are saying like no one else could have played this part. Like she is the movie. Like it wouldn't have
She
worked the
is.
same if anyone else had played her. And we're just like trying to think of like who else could have. And I said like maybe Nicole Kidman. And he's just like, well, no, because she's great, but she has like this very like icy demeanor to her, whereas like Michelle Pfeiffer is warm. She brings this like warmth and vulnerability to the character, which allows like when she is finds herself in those situations, it just like emphasizes the terror because you not that you don't feel like for Nicole Kidman in her movies, but with Michelle Pfeiffer,
Sure.
even like when she is like playing those like tough roles,
Hmm.
like Dangerous Minds or whatever, like there is still like a part of her that is vulnerable, and it really shows through. Um,
Uh, yeah. No. Well, to speak to that, like because I'm a huge fan of both Nicole and Michelle.
yeah,
So I mean, it would have been a very different movie. I mean, again, like this would have been. This is the kind of movie that you can't just kind of like put whatever actor in you want, and you're going to get the same movie. Like
yeah,
it's very much about the choices that an actor's going to make, and every time this was no exception. Seeing interviews with Harrison Ford and Robert Zemeckis discussing Michelle Pfeiffer, they always use the same words. The filmmakers and the actors with whom she works, they always say she comes to set, and this makes me think it's not usual for a star of this magnitude. She comes to set on time, she comes prepared, she knows her lines, and she always delivers. And I'm just consistency. That's the thing that I always get
yeah,
from people who work with her. But what I get from her on screen, like where I agree with Eric's comment, is I always felt like Michelle Pfeiffer is kind of like the most beautiful woman in the world who lives next door to you. Like she feels there's something innately accessible about her, even though she's got kind of like the most surpassing beauty. Mike Nichols once said when had to shoot her face for Wolf that like you don't have the time in this day and age to shoot movie stars the way they used to, the Joan Crawfords and whatnot, with the lighting and to
number
position
three.
their faces in such a way. Yeah, there you go. To position their face. I'm going for four. I'm going for four. But no, but like to position their faces in such a way that like you can accentuate like the things you need to in order to get across the things you need to, like that kind of mindfulness.
Yeah.
They needed the lighting designers needed silence so they could light the lady. And Mike Nichols said of Michelle, you don't have the time to do that. But luckily with Michelle Pfeiffer, no matter what angle you shoot her from and no matter what lighting you use, she looks like the movie stars of a bygone era. So she's got that going for her, but she's also
I think, and that also
that
like adds to the timeless quality of the movie as well because she is
yes,
so timeless. Is she your favorite
yeah,
actress? I'm curious.
yes. I mean,
She,
this is the thing. I've loved her longer than I've loved any other actress. To the
yeah,
extent that I love her, like I have seen too many of her movies, too many times,
yeah,
and she's one of those people who, when I watch, like sometimes stars can key into something with you where you feel like you get it. Like I feel like and even when I see her in interviews, the place that she speaks from when she gets personal, I'm just kind of like, I think I'd get along with you in a very uncreepy. I'm not going to stalk her. I would never tell her this, but I have an affinity for her. I just
mhm,
I've never met her and I've never been in her presence, and I'm afraid that if I did, I might just start weeping.
yeah.
but I
Speaking of
but I it,
weeping,
yeah.
well, just with the character, because you talked about like the moment she cried, but there was another moment that I actually felt was like very touching, and it was like one of the first moments that really gave her that accessibility that you
Yeah.
speak of, and it was still at the very beginning of the movie when they drop off Caitlin, to the dorm, and she's keeping it together. Like, she's just like, okay, and literally not even like halfway at the door, she just starts crying. And he is like holding her, and just they made it out just in time, so not to embarrass the daughter in front of Beatrice, the roommate. I don't know why I remember her name, but
nobody else.
Nobody else.
I will take her to every bar I go to, or something like that.
Well, I think it's just something about the way that, like, when Claire calls Caitlin later, and then it gets Beatrice, and she's just like, oh, hi, Beatrice. Just the way she said, like, Beatrice, like, have her call me. Thank you, Beatrice. But yeah, that moment when she just comes out, it's just like, it just, if she wasn't already, we didn't meet Claire, and she already felt like so lived in this world, in this performance, to then get that and just be like, okay, this is someone who like really loves her daughter, and now her world, like her entire world for like the last 18 years of what she's known is going to change. And it's just like it really starts the movie off, and even though like everything is a slow burn, it's the perfect point to start the movie, because it's just like we see that change, we see that transition. And like going back to what you're saying, like I would say Michelle Pfeiffer is, I mean, if someone was to just ask me like quickly, like, what is your favorite actress, I might say Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, Bette Davis,
when asked,
is obviously another one. I would even say Bridget Fonda,
right?
But
and
Michelle
I would say Jennifer
Pfeiffer.
Jason Leigh.
But
I mean, of course, we all have a roster. Like I have a roster of women who are like, my girls. But she, ever since. Before memory, I don't remember the first time I saw Lady Hawk when I was a child. I must have been 5 or 6, and I saw Isabeau. That was the first role I saw her play in Lady Hawk, and I remember just falling in love with her, in that way that I'm just kind of like, that, she's Isabeau. She's, like the way I'm sure people might have an affinity for their favorite Disney princess or something like that. But then I saw her in Grease 2 and didn't realize it was the same person. And my mom told me, that's Isabeau playing Stephanie Zanoni. I was like, and I just thought she can do anything. And then I found the next thing I saw her in was Batman Returns, and forget it. Then it's over. When you've played Catwoman the way Michelle Pfeiffer played that role, God damn it, man. Like, it's over.
She's an icon. No, incredible. And
we're stands.
Another,
in case anybody didn't believe it.
An actual, like, here you are with your Joan Crawford connections, and I keep bringing up the Scream ones. Well, actually, you brought up the Scream ones, but another major Scream one that like neither of us have mentioned yet, and I don't know if this was new information that came out on the Drew Barrymore show.
Yes, or it's new. It's new.
Yeah. Because I think we had talked about it on a previous episode, but I
think we did.
The Michelle Pfeiffer had stated that, and I don't know if it was in horror in general or for this role, but
it was for this role.
Yeah,
it was for this role.
She had keyed into Drew's method, which I think is more like the Wes Craven method, because Wes was the one who kind of brought Drew that out of...
Drew that out of Drew.
Drew that out of her, by kind of like relaying those stories about like the animals, or that just like got Drew to that very emotional state. So I guess that's because she's does a lot of like charity work with like humane societies and. So like I recall hearing about that. I don't know if that's true.
No, and she's a cat lover for sure.
But she's Catwoman. She has to be. But
she studied her cat when she was playing Catwoman. Like she had a cat at the time that she would study, and I think she's always had pets.
But anyway, so like with that, so she had used the same method of like the hurt or abused animals, and Drew had said to her, like, well, it's funny that you say that, because actually you're like, I drew inspiration from you for my look for that character, because the wig that we took was the same wig that you wore in Scarface.
Well, the same style.
Well, maybe not the same exact wig, but
yeah.
I mean, maybe it could have been, but
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and it
yes.
is. It's hilarious. It's just
No,
that
it went viral.
that
That
full
did go
circle,
viral
yeah.
like a year ago, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, no, that was so precious just to know like the cycle of inspiration that these two women who I adore just kind of like loving on each other and inspiring
Have
one
they
another
worked
and
together?
sharing it so openly with such abandon. It's just such a gift. Like again, that's and Drew, actually, it's interesting because I'd say Drew has a similar quality in the sense that like I don't want to see either of them suffer on screen. They're not the kind of people where something comes up and I'm just kind of like, you know, my initial instinct with both of them is to protect them, you know, to take care of them, as opposed to get it, you know. I don't remember once in this movie with Michelle feeling like get him or anything like that. In fact, when she's probably at her most aggressive, when she goes after her neighbor, what's his name, you know, Samantha Jones' lover from Sex and the City, the neighbor, what's his name? Here, I'll look it up on IMDb.
Their last name started with like an F.
Warren Fewer.
Yeah, Fewer.
Yeah.
Führer or
Führer. Das Führer. But when she goes after him, when she goes after the Führer at the party and everything like that, I think that's kind of her at her most aggressive, her most, you know, like I am unabashedly coming in, and I'm thinking, no. I remember even the first time I saw it, just kind of going like, no, then now's not the time. Now's not. Okay. Yeah. I understand you're upset, darling, but oh God, you know, and
yeah, you feel embarrassed for her. It's an awkward
there is
moment.
A sense.
Yeah.
It leads to a really funny laugh later at the party, though, when she sees.
I mean, maybe for the audience, but you can tell that she was kind of like embarrassed about that. And I love that moment too, because it was just like, because what came in between that was with the scene where Mary, or I think that was her name, Fewer, came over and just like they kind of like sat down and just talked about it. And what does she say? She's like, have you ever like loved someone so hard that it just like it consumed you? And like she's just going on about all this shit. And Claire's just kind of like, yeah, sure. Like just she has no idea what she's talking about, but she's just sort of like, yeah, absolutely, just being supportive. And then then they get to the party and they have that little. They're like, oh hey, and then he like puts his hand around her throat to joke about like killing his wife. And so she's just and that's another thing Michelle could do. That's the vulnerability. If she can just like put on those airs of just like, yeah, I'm a good sport about this, and then just turn around and just be like, oh God, like I'm never gonna live this down, am I?
But also, it's funny though that because the way I interpreted her, I mean, I get it. Like it was very casual and it was very kind of like I'm gonna say whatever because you know this is good that you're talking about it, kind of like more than anything. Yeah. But I also kind of wondered if like she was the only frame of reference she had for that wasn't Harrison Ford, but was her first. Was it husband? She was married before, right? To that guy.
So yeah, and this was something that I was always confused about because I just assumed that they were the parents of Caitlin, because it's not really established early on. It just kind of comes out as the movie goes on that he's actually the stepfather.
Right.
And this is another thing that Eric and I were talking about because he's just like, oh, it's so creepy. Like at the end when she's in the bathtub and he sort of he like alludes to.
He's gonna take good care of her.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't remember that because it's just like I don't remember the first time watching thinking that he was not the father. But yeah, because he says he's like, oh, if anything, your suicide's gonna bring Caitlin and I closer together, and he's and then he says like, you know, every time I look at you, I see her, and that's kind of the extent of it.
Gross.
Yeah.
Again, out of control, like the powerlessness. I'm sitting there hearing that, going like, "You can't let this happen! Move!"
And the other thing,
Kill
like,
Bill, that shit. Move your toe. Go on.
To speak to Harrison Ford as well, because like I hadn't even noticed this because I was just watching it on my computer like right before we did this, just that scene, or just like even the scene where she's kind of crawls downstairs and collapses paralyzed. And he's standing there and he's like saying like, you know, I didn't want it to be this way, yada yada yada. And you'd think like, okay, here's just someone being this like two-dimensional villain without like any real depth or whatever. But he's actually crying. You can't like you know, if you're watching it on like Blu-ray or just like on a more high def screen, you can tell. But I never noticed that in the initial viewing. So it's just like he's a fucking like he's a creep and everything. But it's just like he's still human and he's still conveying these raw emotions. And I think it's just like it does speak to the fact that they were the first and only choices, because I could not see, I mean, I could possibly see someone else playing his role, but I don't, like, again, it probably wouldn't be the same movie. And I just think that like the two of them together just like really made the magic here.
Well, because Harrison Ford can turn on charm when he needs to, but he can also be incredibly almost like a sedentary, like he can occupy a screen in a very sedentary way where he almost seems like he blends in and becomes part of the furniture. And that's not to his detriment or to the movie's detriment, because we can't have someone in that role who draws too much attention, because then we're all going to see, or at least we're going to suspect. But the fact that he is as low key as he is through as much of the movie as he is, like arguably like the first 2/3, I think it only boosts the experience of the film. And there was one more thing that gave me kind of the tension that I think the movie intended. Obviously, stepping over the person who is the culprit when they are rendered quote unquote unconscious, but they have the object that you need, you know, is always going to be a tense situation, and if handled properly, really tense. And he's got the phone, she needs the phone. And what I love about that moment is there's an added component to it. We already know, because he's expressed it in his speech to her in the bathtub upstairs at moments before, that he played dead, or unconscious actually, in that shower indefinitely for a really, really long time, and was really, really good at it, to the point where none of the paramedics suspected anything. He fooled her. She was in panic. Like, you know, everybody thought like, you know, he's at death's door or whatever. So you've got a guy who is like a professional possum, you know, at playing possum. So that would have entered my mind if I had to step over him. Like, what if he's just doing it again? So it just gave it a little bit more edge, because it's a tried and true, what's the word I'm looking for? Device that you can use in a movie, but I don't remember ever being introduced that this was also a person who's really, really good at pretending they're unconscious or that they're dead. So that scared the shit out of me.
I mean, even if he wasn't unconscious, he woke up in that moment when she was running out. And that was another great use of, I mean, I don't think that was any new technology, because like we'd seen it done in Carrie, of just that kind of like dual camera focus thing, because you could see him clearly in the foreground opening his eyes while you can still see her running away, but I was going to focus. Also, there's another moment that you're just talking about, like how they play off of each other and how he kind of blends in, and it goes back to that like very lived in feel of them as a couple too. But it's when they're having dinner with that other couple, and he just like kind of out of nowhere says, Claire thinks it's haunted, or just, and then it just like, you know, pin drop, and she kind of looks at him just like, how you fucking prick. Dare you? Yeah. But then she just kind of goes along with, she's just like, because I mean, I've seen that all the time. Yes. Like I've seen that in like when like my mother was married, like with my stepfather, just like moments where just like you shouldn't say what you said, and then just like that, like the response to it, and it just it felt natural, and it lends to just like that aspect of him that's just like, that is very conniving and gaslighting, of just sort of like planting these seeds and like making her seem, even though I don't think at any point here he's imagining that down the line he's going to murder her, but he's still taking an opportunity to kind of put her down, but or just like make her seem like she's crazy or whatever in the eyes of their friends, and especially like in the eyes of like another like scholar or like professor or whatever that works at the college that he works at. So it's just interesting that they do it and they kind of sweep it under the rug in a way that just like, oh, it's normal, that it does kind of lend to that. Like he comes in, he's like a shark, he does his thing and then he disappears and
Right.
doesn't pull focus away from her, because we're still kind of like on her and her reaction to everything.
Right, but also, and the level of authenticity also being like, oh, that's something we know about that couple, because there is a couple where that moment happens where one member of the couple says something that they're not supposed to, publicly, that is
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing for the other, and they have the fight at the table in front of. It doesn't matter who they're around.
Yeah.
This isn't that couple. This is the couple that does not have the fight at the table, may not even have the fight later. Like, the only thing I thought, the most dangerous thing about that particular moment was I thought, like, oh, that might be a talk in the car on the ride on the ride back from dinner. If she remembers it.
No, it'll be she'll remember, but it'll be a talk like 6 months down the line.
I mean, I can't argue with that, because she doesn't seem to be the most confrontational character. And I don't know, maybe that's another thing that like had Nicole Kidman or another, because I mean, one of the components I've heard that I agree with often describing Nicole as a performer is she's a very at-risk performer. There's always an element of danger in what she's doing. Like, there's this a lack of inevitability, because pretty much anything could happen. Like, she's that, like, there's a level of chaos to what she's doing, and this character is much more benign, I think. So watching a character that has a level of chaos subliminally, I don't know what that would be like. And another reason why Michelle's kind of like ideal for a movie like this.
Yeah, it's perfect. Just reading another interesting thing. So the house, their house on the lake, was not a real house. Like, that was built for the production. So that makes me think maybe the kitchen was modeled after Scream.
Maybe.
Yeah. But even like I was watching the featurette on the Blu-ray, and they even like talked about the house of just sort of like they want it to be this like very idyllic house on a lake that looks like it would just be suited to these people, but also like the way that they light it at night, or just like kind of how it takes on this different look, that it does look ominous and it does look like there's something more sinister about it. So just kudos to the set designers for this movie as well. But unfortunately, I mean, I think it was built as an actual house, which speaks to, I guess, the film's budget again. But I guess they had to tear it down because it didn't meet local building codes, as it says here on the trivia.
Very nice. But I another thing, because I don't want it to sound like I feel like I'm kind of washing Michelle Pfeiffer in this frailty light, and I don't want to. One of the things that I think was actually incredibly brave of her was the only thing she kind of had hesitancy about taking the role, and I saw her talk to this, was being in water, particularly like in lakes and situations like that. It's funny that the title of the film is What Lies Beneath, because literally she has an almost phobia. It hasn't been diagnosed, so who knows? But she has a very irrational fear, her words, of not being able to know what is beneath her, And she knew she was going to have to spend a lot of time underwater, and certainly at a certain point, like, she was going to have to go into that lake, and not know what was beneath her and everything like that. And she tried to communicate that to Robert Zemeckis, and she said for the longest time he thought I was just being nervous, like in an actory way. And I don't know what it was, but finally I communicated it to him in a way. No, there's a panic factor. You may not be able to get your shots, which is probably what she needed to say. If you can't get your shots, then we can't finish this movie. And then he's like, as a typical director, like, oh, fuck, well, okay. So he hired a scuba diver to work with her. in her pool, and she continued to work like in the lake, and she was fine. Again, no complaints from anybody. She didn't have any panic attacks that are on record. And anytime you're working within the confines of something that you yourself as a human being have a personal fear that you know is irrational, but that doesn't help you when you have an irrational fear. The element of its irrationality means you can't reason your way out of it. It just exists. And so I think she's incredibly brave to face that head on. I don't know if I could do that with the things that I have irrational fears about, you know, like, here, come hold this giant snake with a huge head. No.
I mean,
I like little snakes.
Yeah,
big snakes, no.
It's definitely part of an actor's job, and I think it, you know, also comes down to, you know, how much trust you have in the filmmaker. And I think that the fact that she wanted to be, you know, work with these people, like, you know, you know, there comes a point where you are comfortable doing things that are outside of your comfort zone. I'm just like, there's so much interesting trivia here. So we talked about the feuars, spelt F-E-U-R, which is the Gaelic word for grass, which I guess is an allusion to the adage, the grass is always greener on the other side, with the neighbors.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. It seems like it's an original story. There's no like based on or anything. Yeah. But it seems so literary. I wondered if you had heard anything at all about it being based on anything aside from this, because I haven't. It seems like an original idea, which is also kind of like rare. I don't know. It just seemed like it would be based on something. Like I could read this book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it were, but I didn't uncover any of that.
It has. I mean, it has that quality about it. It just has like the setting, the characters, and I think that also the fact that like a lot of women's pictures were based on novels at the time, that it does feel that way for sure. I wonder if there is like a novelization of the book, like after the movie came out. I'd be interested in reading that.
eBay. I'm looking.
Okay, check it out. Are you looking right now, or are you gonna look after?
No, I'll look after. I won't look during.
Well, I want people to know. I want.
Okay, I'll type. You say something while I look.
Okay.
Real quick.
This was, or to this date, this has been Harrison Ford's only horror movie, which does not surprise me at all.
Nah.
And I mean, like, the term horror, like, I mean, this is a thriller. There's definitely like horror aspects to it for sure. Like, I mean, I have it in my collection of horror movies. But it's always funny if, like, you know, like you have an actor like that is just like, I made one exception in my career, and it was, no, that's Harrison Ford's voice now, and it was What Lies Beneath. And did you find any interviews of them talking about What Lies Beneath more recently? I guess like the Drew Barrymore one is like the most recent.
That's the most recent one. That's the one that comes right at the top of the YouTube search. The next, I think I watched about 6 or 7 interviews after that, and they were all vintage.
But
they were like at the premiere and stuff like that.
What was her kind of take on the movie?
She, I mean, in the promotional material, because I don't think she's really commented.
Well, no,
on the
I'm
film
talking
itself.
about now. I'm talking about like.
Oh yeah, no, now
present day, yeah.
She didn't. I don't remember her really addressing any of that in the Drew situation. So I don't know. I wonder, because I've heard her speak about roles from the past, but I really haven't heard her talk about this one a lot. So if I ever find her at a party and I can keep myself from crying, I'll be sure to ask her about this one.
Ask her about Wolf too.
Oh God, must I? I have so many questions. I want to. She talked recently about Age of Innocence, and I want to ask her about that. And I just want to commend her on. This is another thing I want to commend her on as an actor. And this might be because I don't want this to be just the Eddie gushing over Michelle Pfeiffer pod, but no, because I mean, everything I've uncovered about her as an actor in terms of her investment and the risks that she takes, like it only ever, she always seemed to be looking for the challenge within. Like it almost like the script is an obstacle course, and she wants to know what the obstacles are so she can focus on them and conquer them. Like we mentioned in the Patreon pod when we were discussing Cruel Intentions and Dangerous Liaisons, she realized the role has to play literally the same scene over and over and over again. Basically, a woman being, harassed by this man and, not happy about it. So she had to find different ways to play it. How do I play this same moment a different way, and keep it interesting? What's the progression? What do I know now that I didn't know about him before? And really working to personalize that and make it specific. And then I think about we mentioned Batman Returns earlier. She had to put a live bird in her mouth. A lot of people think that was an optical effect. It wasn't. She was trained to put a live bird inside her mouth so it could fly out in that scene with the penguin. She learned how to, strike a bullwhip. And Anthony DeLongis, her stunt coordinator who taught her, said she is doing things with the whip that 90% of the people who do it for a living can't do. I can't speak to it enough. Like it's not just nostalgia that makes her my favorite actress, and probably my favorite actor. It's just a roster of moments, opportunities she's had to impress me that she has delivered on and off screen. So there you go. That's my gush. you want to take it, Zach?
Well, no, I'm just I'm looking through more of this trivia here, because there's this one bit that says that the face of the ghost, or of Madison, is visible in the very last scene when she's visiting her grave. And Claire's walking away from it in the snow, and I guess the face shows up in the snow. And I've opened it on my computer here, and I cannot, for the life of me, see this face in the snow. I love little Easter eggs and shit like that, but no, I cannot. Sure, I can't see it. I don't.
You're going to be looking at it frame by frame after we get off this pod.
I know, but there's so many moments where the ghost shows up, and I mean, I think probably the most effective is when Norman takes her head just to look at the necklace, and then when he rests her back, and then it's just
that was fucked up.
That's even though the effect doesn't look that great, just in terms of how
but the moment jolted me.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely
timed perfectly and staged perfectly.
If one thing, because we were talking about camp before, and I forgot how the movie ended. I forgot that she, because that's pretty campy in itself, of just her coming out of the thing. You know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of House on Haunted Hill, 1999, when Bridget Wilson's character, when she's takes form as the spirit or whatever, and she's coming up the stairs, and she's just wait, why are you going so soon? Aren't you going to stay for my show? And it just it looks like that. The blonde woman. It's campy, but I forgot, as she was driving, when you got that big sailboat and the mast on the back, I thought oh, that's going to impale him. And that's what I wanted. That's what I was waiting for. And then
I thought so too.
It went through the windshield, and it was just
See, you're conditioned by Scream 2 to expect a pole to go through the windshield.
And Final Destination 2.
And Final Destination.
Any of the Final Destinations, but
maybe it was a misdirect. Maybe it was intentional. We were supposed to expect it to happen, so
maybe
so it wouldn't.
Maybe. I guess I was just more so I would have loved it. It would have satiated my bloodlust. For the genre, just to get to have him just get impaled, in some capacity by a sailboat.
I'm so glad you're bringing that aspect of the climax, the camp of it all, in that particular instance too, because for me, we were probably already past the point of no return as far as this being a sophisticated thriller or something like that, a highbrow, non-exploitational kind of campless wonder. But for me, when the corpse apparitions and moves almost freely of its own will through the water, I was laughing. Like, it was a full-throated laugh. I didn't do it in the theater. I think the first time I saw it, I was too disappointed by so many components of the film. Like, I was expecting it to be something else other than what it was, and the red herring of the first hour was such a disappointment. And then so by the time we reached the second hour, I was tired, and then we'd already discussed like kind of like the quietude of that transition from the second act to the third act, and that I remember that boring me in the theater. It didn't this time, and I don't think it ever will again. But it was fun to revisit. I'm really glad that I got to. Because I think I curled my lip. I'll take any opportunity to watch Michelle Pfeiffer work in any movie, but I know that they're not all winners. Like, the movies themselves are not. Yeah. But this one, it was refreshing. I wish there could have been more Diana Scarwid in it. Like, she actually kind of like, she's mentioned towards the end of the film, but I wish she could have been another person to come in and maybe offer help. And maybe this is too misery, but like for her to like get as far as like helping her in the house and seem like kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, like, oh my God, help your friend. That would have been actually really gratifying. And then watch him take her out, whether he just knocks her out or kills her or whatever he has to do. Like, it would have been one more kind of like thrill.
So he probably would have just like knocked her out.
Yeah, but, he probably just
which is why also we didn't get the impalement at the end, because they needed that PG-13. But maybe. I don't know. I think that the thing with her, I mean, I could have used more of her, because I really liked her. But at the same time, it's just like, I think that she's used effectively in all the scenes that she is in. And I think that like one extra scene of her, like, other than that, what you explained, like, what could she do? But I don't know. That's what I think. But I think that any more of her might have taken away from Michelle. Because Michelle is on screen in every scene. Like, if you look at her filmography, this is probably her most prominent role in terms of screen time. Like, it has to be. It's a 2-hour plus movie, and she is the lead. Like, she is in every scene. So it's got to. This is the most work she's done in one picture in her career. And I feel like, there's a very intentional reason for that. And I think that, if you had more Jodie in the film, it just would have been less Michelle, or less Claire, I should say.
Yeah, probably. And maybe it's, again, like, maybe it's a commendable, like, anytime something is working in a film so much that you want more of it, it doesn't necessarily mean the film requires more of it. It just means that that particular component is working. So I guess that, that's good.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah,
good.
I actually fell asleep. Well, because I was watching it like last night, and because I'm trying to like readjust my sleeping hours here. So I was watching it, and watching through the movies, and I started to doze off at the end. And I just I remember how the scene went, and it's just like I wasn't really missing anything, because it's just like it is so slow. But I do need to go back and watch at least the third act again, just to experience it without like interruption of just like slipping in and out of consciousness. But no, that's just me like watching movies way too late.
I get that. I get that. There's a time where I'll be watching something new or something that actually, like, requires attention, and I'll feel myself drift off. I'll wake up and I'll realize, I'll check the, time signature and be like, oh, shit, I was asleep for 2 minutes. Okay, back it up 2 minutes, close it, because it's usually streaming, so I can return to it later. Put on something I've seen hundreds of times before, so I can fall asleep to it. That's basically the way it goes down now. Yeah. Another thing that made me chuckle just before we wrap up with this movie, Are
you taking lead here?
Well,
you're calling the wrap up?
Well, I mean, I can feel us winding down. You're yawning and stuff. But so I just wanted to get it in. Like, I
All
thought
right,
it was funny
okay.
when they had
Just checking.
yeah, the little lock of hair that they burn. Nothing burns faster than hair, and I love that. Like, there's Harrison Ford laying it on a pile of wood, and then squeezing. I don't know what kerosene or whatever,
fluid,
lighter fluid, like right on top of it and everything like that. And before he lights a match, and they just sit there watching it burn, hoping it. And I'm just kind of like, you could have just burned the thing. I don't know. It made me. I laughed out loud at a lot of moments that I don't know whether they were intended laughs or not.
All I could think in that moment was just like, you stole that fucking lock of hair out of that girl's room. Like, that the mother is like, she's gonna notice that missing. She's goes in there every day, and she knows where everything is. You stole that fucking lock of hair. And now you're burning property that's not even yours. I don't know. I mean, like I said at the beginning, like, that character of like the mom just felt so like out of place. That scene felt out of place in the movie. Because it felt more Silence of the Lambs than it did Psycho or anything.
All of a sudden
Hitchcock.
she's a detective, right?
And but it's still like, I felt bad. It's just like, that doesn't belong to you. Return it. And it's got supernatural powers. You don't burn things. If Hereditary has shown us anything, you don't throw shit in the fire and light it. Because that can be casting a spell. Now you've cast a spell unintentionally. You don't even know what you've put into the ether. I don't like that. Yeah. But also, I remembered laughing, even though the moment worked, like I already described, like when he's laying there and I'm and she finds him and she's already gotten out of the tub. So now it's like time for her to crawl over him and get the phone. Right before that happened, because of just kind of, I don't know, the internal mania that she must have been going through as far as like him. He had disappeared and slid out the door, and she's finally getting mobility and everything like that. I did laugh out loud, just supposing, like, how would you unpack this to the police? Like, can you imagine having to recount everything that happened, even just like that to that point in the movie, let alone like what follows and everything? Like, the cops are going to have questions. They're going to want to know what went down. How much do you think she's going to tell them? She's obviously not incarcerated or anything at the end of the movie. No. Like, she's freely walking through the snow. If Samara Weaving can get away with shit at the end of Ready or Not, and presumably Aaron in Your Next, like, I'm pretty sure that Claire will be okay. But where did the dog go? That's what I wanted to know. Like, the Cooper, the most useless dog in any horror movie.
I know.
Doesn't even want to jump into the water. Yeah,
I'm guessing Norman might have. Yeah, maybe Norman just room. Like.
Oh, he didn't kill him.
No, because we would have seen it. Yeah. But if ever they kill the dog shows up corpsed.
Yeah.
But
they should have had the dog at the end at the cemetery with her just to let
that would have been nice. Yeah. But then I would have been like, where the fuck were you? Anyway, man's best friend, my ass.
Yeah.
That said, though, you talked about like her crying at college and everything like that being kind of like a wonderful, moment of like, if I weren't already on board with her, this would certainly get me there. But for me, I think the earliest moment where that happened. I mean, I kind of liked her interaction with her daughter too, because she's such a mom. But her interaction with the dog when she walks out to the window, and she's just kind of like, hey boy. Good dog. And she just like walks away from him and I can see it. I'm like, oh my God, you're such a pet owner because you love your dog. You want to say, hey, how's it going? But if you get too excited, that dog's going to get excited. It's going to think it's time to walk or, like it's time to play. You can't get the dog. You're good dog. I'm just going to walk right by you. And I'm going to go get breakfast ready. I don't know. That was a very personal moment for me. I dug it.
Also, just in terms of like what she would tell the police, because I think that remember the paralyzing agent that he used, like that fell on the floor, so it would have been evidence there, right. And they can link it back to his lab and the scientists that he works with that know, okay, it all goes back to him. So I don't think it would have been too hard for her to explain it. And also in that conversation earlier when they're at the restaurant and the cross conversation. Because the one that the two of them are talking about were like another peer of theirs who kind of got caught for some nefarious thing. So I mean, the town knows like these college professors and scientists.
Up to
That,
no good.
they're not that great. They're scoundrels.
They need to be scrutinized.
When she,
Yes?
what was her line? Do you remember when? Because that's when she's spying on the neighbor, and he comes home and surprises her, and he's like, "Why aren't you dressed? We're gonna be late for dinner." And she kind of like runs off to the bathroom, and she says something. She's
I think she just said 5 minutes, something like that.
that was also campy. I'm just like, it's not gonna take me a long time.
Yeah, like it's like that's tonight. Like I mean,
Yeah.
oh, I loved it, and I loved because I was right there with her, going, "Wait, did we establish that? Were we
was
supposed
not
to know that,
established.
Michelle?"
Was it established? Now I'm wondering.
I don't remember it being established, so I think it was just her playing it up, like, "Oh, I forgot," but. Who knows? Maybe he mentioned it at one point to her prior to that. And we just weren't listening because we were with her.
Because he's furniture.
We were on the ride with her.
He's
we were
oiled
looking
up
out
furniture.
the window with Michelle.
It was
Like,
probably in the scene where he was all oiled up on the bed and he said, "Don't forget we got that dinner with."
Oh my God! I bet. I bet you.
And we're just like, okay, not even listening. But
yeah, hi, greasy man.
Yeah.
Look at Michelle; she's so beautiful. That's another thing. There were so many shots of her face where I was just kind of like, God, those cheekbones. You know, it's just those impossibly high, beautiful cheekbones, and God, the kindness of those eyes, and they're like, whenever. If ever there is like a slow moment in this movie, you can just bask in her beauty, which is great.
Yeah. Well, if there's one other thing I wanted to mention, it's just the usage of mirrors in the movie, and I don't just mean like the ghost showing up, but like especially in some of like the earlier scenes, like of just coming in the house and the hallway mirror, and just sort of like seeing. The characters just like go off and still like seeing them through the mirrors or on the phones or whatever. And then of course we get that wonderful shot of just like, I think she's starting to suspect something. Yes. And just like seeing her there, like presumably like in the rain, witnessing her husband having an affair. And I don't think that, because that's the moment where she would have got in the car and then wrapped it around the tree. Like she got into the accident, and I don't think that she was suffering from memory loss. I think she just repressed it intentionally.
Ooh. Okay. I mean, oh God,
well, because memory loss is just, it's too soap opera, and just everything with the character.
That's what I love about it.
But everything with the character just feels so like it's just so repressive. Like it's just like we can't.
The only thing that backs up the memory loss for me, but you know what? Maybe you know what? See, now I'm thinking about what you just posited, and it's actually very interesting. It's actually more interesting than memory loss, because I was going to say, having Jodie, Diana Scarway, just kind of like there's that moment where she's, I think it's right before she's leaving at one point, and she's just kind of looking at her like, and she's just like, I don't remember what Michelle says. She says something to the extent of kind of like, you know, do you think I'm crazy, or do you think I'm doing okay? Like something like that, where she's just kind of either questioning or assuring. And Jodie's just being like a good friend, just kind of, she says, something, she like gives her a hug, and she just tells her something to the extent of like, you are okay, you know, like you're amazing, like something like a really good friend. Mm-hmm. But before that, she's got this lingering look on her, like she's worried about her, and that made me think like, so the memory loss, like, because obviously Jodie remembers, so she's remembering, wondering as a friend, do I ever tell my friend the truth? Maybe it's better that she doesn't remember. They seem to have resolved everything. If I ever see him again doing that kind of thing, maybe I can tell her.
I don't think that she knew about her walking in on seeing them have an affair. She just knew what she saw. She knows the aftermath of just like him being on the brink of losing her because she was in the hospital or whatever. But I don't know. I think she was repressing the memory, because I mean that's because in the beginning when she opens up the scrapbook and the photo falls out, she looks at it and she has that moment where she's just like, and puts it back. Because there was something
she's looking at the car. She's looking at the car.
Yeah, there was something linked to it that like, even if she's not like fully cognizant of it, she's just like, I don't want to
Zack,
delve into that.
You know what? That actually, I mean, like that doesn't soap opera it up, but it does woman's picture it up. Like that's very Fourth time, Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford would totally do that in a Joan Crawford movie. She would repress it and just want to focus on the good things, you know?
So if this was made back in the day, Joan Crawford is playing Claire. Who's playing Norman? Who's playing Jody?
Who cares who's playing Norman? Like any of the men who worked with Joan Crawford at the time. But
like
Jody,
Errol.
I mean, just because Eve Arden was such a good, like, sassy kind of, character actress friend of hers and Mildred Pierce, I'd cast her.
Sure, whatever.
In a heartbeat. Huh?
No, I was just saying, sure, whatever. I don't know who you're talking about, but...
You don't know Eve Arden?
No.
She played Mrs. McGee, the principal, in both the Grease movies. But when she was younger, she was a fast-talking broad who had her hands on her hips for most of her lines. And, yeah.
Well, I don't know. If our audience knows who that is,
Oh, I hope if you don't, look her up. She's worth watching. She was good friends with Lucille Ball.
There we go.
Just some trivia.
Anything else you want to add?
I think I've said it all.
Do we want a sequel? Do we want a requel for What Lies Beneath?
I mean, what would a requel entail?
It's a joke. But yeah.
But I mean, I bet you anything there are studios wondering, like, could we ever make this a franchise? How?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a sequel script somewhere. Oh, and I did look on eBay. Yeah. I didn't find anything that looks like it's related to this, but it's a very common phrase. So you've got, like, What Lies Beneath, Katrina, Race, and the State of the Nation. And I guess that's Hurricane Katrina. And then, like, an eyewitness ocean discover what lies beneath the watery surface. So there's a lot of titles. There's a What Lies Beneath mass market paper bound by Andrea Lawrence, but it looks more like a dime novel, like a Harlequin novel. Yeah, so I don't think there's a movie. There's no movie version of this.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, then let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people. On purpose.
Okay, Eddie, who is our cherry on top?
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. You know my answer.
Well, you have to dignify the character, dignify the person. Show some...
Claire Spencer.
It's obviously Claire Spencer.
Obviously.
Because who else could? I mean, like, I guess, like,
we could nominate
Jody,
Diana Scarwick,
but
because,
no, this is Michelle's movie.
Totally,
it would be ludicrous to not give her cherry on top.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Child's Play 3. Ooh. I don't know where that. It just kind of went.
Yeah, it's kind of like Chucky telling a ghost story.
I didn't start there, but I finished.
Who deserves to die the most?
Oh, that's like Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say like Chucky meets Adam Sandler. Who deserves to die the most? Okay, go on.
So, I nominated Brett Shelton.
Yeah.
You nominated Sergeant Botnick. Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 706 for Shelton versus 364 for Botnick.
Thanks for showing up, guys.
So, Amethyst Frost says, I tried to predict the nominations before the episode and got Eddie's pick, but not Zack's because I forgot about Shelton entirely. So I guess that means I vote for the Sarge by default, but I got a really pervy vibe from him, like a more subtle version of the coach from Freddy's Revenge. So I wanted him to die the most anyway. I haven't rewatched Child's Play 3 since I saw Hellraiser for the first time, so at least it's fun now knowing that's Kirsty's dad.
Yeah, and that's probably the first time that performance has been described as subtle.
Also, Amethyst Frost, who is another Patreon supporter, so thank you. But they made I guess a spreadsheet. I don't know how else to describe it of all the past cherry picker results. So like you and I have always been like, who's like, we're not keeping a tally.
No.
Amethyst Frost has been, and I've linked this to like on the YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube, for the cherry picker and go, I guess it's in the about or whatever the links. It'll be one of the first links there. It just goes to the cherry picker voting history, and it shows not like all of the like not just the cherry picker but the old podcast, which I guess is affiliated with the cherry picker. So starting with when we covered Friday the 13th, because that was really the inception of the cherry picker, or just the idea when because we had like a little thing.
We had some either or.
Yeah.
The
and then
the
it
Halloween
finally
2 moment.
Yeah,
initially.
when we got to the Friday the 13th, we're just like, let's just like decide who dies
Kill
the
people.
most. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
So yeah, Amethyst Frost has all that data going back that far. The current tally, I can actually tell you where we're at. Give me a second. But also including like cherry on tops, as well as like just trivia about the podcast that I don't even remember. So it's all there, and it's very impressive. And I think you should all check it out, as it's taken me a while to get there. So let me read the next comment. User TT8RX, I don't know if that's the full thing. I'll just say user was not a fan of Botnick's manhandling of children, but Shelton was going to be a decades-long day and night headache for all new and current attendees of the Academy, and he looks like Sid from Toy Story, a true menace. Who's the one actor? He was in Midsommar, but he was in that Jennifer Aniston movie where they were like pretending to be a family. I think it was Jason Sudeikis. Is that how you say it? And Emma Roberts. Sudeikis.
Yeah.
What was that one called? Because he was the son, the fake son. And everyone's just like, he looks like Sid from Toy Story, and he actually, there's pictures of him going as Sid.
Will
for
Poulter.
Halloween.
That's his name, Will Poulter.
Will Poulter. I guess like Will Poulter also like looks like that Shelton. Maybe
More
like
so. I'd say Will Poulter definitely more of a match. I remember when I was younger thinking that Shelton would be hot if he weren't such a prick. when I was younger, when I was age appropriate to think that.
So cherry picker. So currently and this is including the old podcast tallies as well, but you have 50 and I have 66. So
that's not surprising.
You got some catching up to do.
Oh God. I knew. Oh boy. It matters so much to you, Zach.
It doesn't. I just want that competitive edge to be.
Yeah, sure.
Emperantha. Fun fact: this was my first Child's Play film. Saw it on cable when I was in, I want to say, 4th grade. What was your first Child's Play?
I actually, because I think I told the story with the first movie. The 4th graders were watching it, so I caught witness. So I was in 3rd grade the first time I saw any footage from the movie, but I think I was emboldened to watch it in its entirety.
Maybe
a few years later, after Nightmare on Elm Street, so probably like 14-ish or so, 13 or 14.
Maybe that was Emperantha's 4th grade class that you.
Maybe.
Not that they didn't specify that they saw it in 4th grade, but just during. I don't remember. Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure I must have seen like the original 3 at some point, but I more so distinctly remember the first time I saw Bride of Chucky. Anyway, that's a podcast for October. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And then also, Emperantha adds, oof, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with Shelton. From what I remember, he had more screen time being a bully to Andy and the other cadets.
That's true.
Sean Prinsick, I get that Brett is an awful person who's way too into his role, but I gotta vote for Sergeant Botnick because I feel like he's probably done stuff and and the other members of the Academy are just turning a blind eye. Brett is like Tom Cruise from Taps, while Botnick is more like Stanley Tucci from The Lovely Bones and Nobody's Children Are Safe. I don't get these references.
I appreciate them though. That's great.
Anyone who has served in the military can vouch that the barbers are a little odd or even eccentric at times, but Botnick really pushes the boundaries of believability. Meanwhile, I think Brett is someone most of us are sadly familiar with. However, Brett seems to be after his peers, while I'm under the impression that Botnick is going after children.
Yeah.
Itsy Benny.
I mean, they're both going after children, but it makes a difference when you're an adult or you're just another child, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Shelton was going to be an adult going after children at some point,
Yeah.
I mean, they're both dead at this point, so, you know.
It's a moot point at best.
It's very moot. Itsy Benny, Brett absolutely sucks. Botnick was definitely a weirdo, but he raises the bar slightly for starring in Hellraiser, so my vote goes to Brett. I don't know why I said Hellraiser so weirdly like that. Hellraiser.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Tyler
Every time.
Rumfeld. That's yes. Lieutenant Colonel Shelton to you. Did he say? I guess he's a lieutenant colonel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking d-bag.
I know.
Not you, Tyler.
No. Lieutenant Colonel Shelton. Yeah.
I had to specify. Grizzly Taylor, Botnick. Who the fuck tries to barber a goddamn doll?
Yeah, I agree. It's weird.
Sucked. Botnick, because he never gave the haircuts that he promised the cadets. They were never actually fully shaven off for most of them. Terrible barber. Silent.
You're bald.
Presto. You're dead. Silent Saturn. Honestly, the film is so meh. I don't feel strongly about either of them. In the long tradition of bullies in horror films, Shelton is relatively harmless. He'd probably be more the bully's henchman in any other movie. Botnick just really loves his job, and while a bit overzealous, I don't have a massive problem with him. I mean, he clearly doesn't go as short as he should, but just so everyone has to come back frequently so they're not paying for their haircut, so no real harm done. Oh, well, my vote goes to the bully, I guess. He was more of a presence throughout the film.
All right.
Lewis just says the movie. And,
okay.
I guess
not a fan.
This is 2 in a row not loving it. Blue Box 87 says both suck. I guess Shelton gets my vote, but I just came here to say Andy. I'm assuming that's the
Well, I just wanted to hear you read Andy.
Yeah. Andy. Well, no, unless Andy gets it should have been nominated, but
maybe not a Justin Whalen fan. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. Andy Barkley.
I just think everybody's motivated by the same things I am, and I just want to hear you say words in Chucky's voice.
That's
so.
fair. Any Hoosers, I get first dibs. Yeah. And honestly, I don't want to leave you in a bad situation.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna, because I don't know anyone else in this movie that deserves it more than Norman Spencer.
Right.
So fuck that guy. He can go. He's a dirtbag.
Okay.
An oiled up dirtbag.
I hope there's at least a handful of people who, no matter who I choose, are going to say, I don't know, something akin to, yeah, he might have been like a cold-blooded killer and a and a liar and a gaslighter, but damn, at 59 to look that good.
He should not have been that close to the fire when they were burning that hair, because he might have ignited up in flames
Yeah,
with all
right?
that oil on it. Anyway,
I remember. No, I just remember. I think the first time, because he was shirtless, I think in Temple of Doom, and I saw that at a very young age, and I thought he was very attractive. But I remember I was undone when I saw him a couple years later in Regarding Henry, and there was a movie where
I never saw that.
I can't remember if Annette Bening was his wife or whoever it was. Somebody like Annette Bening, if not her, but somebody, the actress who's playing his wife, while she's trying to help him jog his memory.
Yeah.
He has to like relearn how to have sex and everything like that, and she's ready, and she's like unbuttoning his shirt because she wants to get it on with her husband, and I just remember seeing his chest then and just being like, oh my god. And yeah, anyway,
I mean, well,
don't even know
Temple
why
of
I'm going
Doom
there.
was an awakening for sure.
Yes.
And that's also that. I mean, talk about camp, but also like talk about the gay Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, right.
If there is, I mean, like I don't know, Eddie.
They sing
like,
"Anything Goes," don't they? In the opening.
I mean,
I don't remember what language they sing it in, but it's
Yeah, I think any self-respecting gay man would probably, if you're just like favorite Indiana Jones movie, they would probably say Temple of Doom.
It was my favorite growing up. Now I haven't seen the last two, but I might lean toward.
I haven't seen the new one,
okay.
and I would have to watch them all over again because I
Yeah, I would too, but I might lean toward Last Crusade just because for that stage in the franchise, for it to be as fresh as it is, and for him and Sean Connery to have as good chemistry as they do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such an enjoyable film. But anyway, okay. So my choice is not Harrison Ford. I'm gonna go. Could pretty much take my pick, but this bothered me and we didn't bring it up yet. I'm gonna go with Dr. Drayton, the therapist, just because he does that dancing around the thing that therapists do in movies that I often wonder. I always want my sister to see, because she is the therapist, and I always want to know her take on, like, so did you see the therapist in that thing that we watched, like, or we said we were going to watch, like, what did you think? And I'm really curious to think about to know, like, what about his methods. But what really bothered me is that he offered her in the first session, I believe, he offered her that bowl of fireballs. And she puts it in her mouth, like full on in her mouth. She doesn't just like suck on the edge of it and everything like that. She like just shoves it in her mouth. Eventually it starts getting hot because guess what? Fireballs. She spits it out and cups it in her hand and just kind of sits there with her hands in her lap for the rest of the scene. Son of a bitch didn't offer her a Kleenex or a napkin or a
I think
bowl
that was the
or
end of the scene though. Because she's just like, oh, it's hot. And then she spit it out, and then
she spit it out. But there was enough time that he should have offered her something. And I'm like, the seconds are ticking away, and I'm like, bitch, offer her something. You just gave her something that she shouldn't be having during therapy. That's got to that's got to throw you off your balance or whatever, your equilibrium emotionally. And I think it's I would feel double crossed if I were sitting in that chair, in her chair, watching him, give me fireballs and watch me suffer. It's like, bitch, what are you doing? I would have just said no, but I would have said it defiantly. I would have been like, no. Put that
Michelle,
down.
she wouldn't have said that. Of course. Okay. I mean, it's a justifiable Edward Scrooge nomination.
I mean, it's justifiable as many of my others.
I did leave you in the lurch here with like literally.
But I thought about him from the beginning, actually.
Yeah.
So
I would have. I mean, if this situation was reversed and you had chosen Norman, I probably would have gone for Warren fewer, just for the fact that he like takes the lovely gift basket that she arranged, took the wine and just like tossed the flower, like those flowers and that garden is, I mean, he doesn't know this, but it's just like, come on, you douche.
Yeah, he seems like a dick. I mean, regardless of whatever's going on in that marriage, he does seem like a dick. And that actor plays dick really well. But does he deserve to die because of it?
No. Well, we never found out how the blood got on the shoe.
No, or if it was even blood. Maybe it was paint. Maybe she painted. I don't know.
Who knows?
But
she was very erratic herself. Maybe she should have deserved it more than him.
Because I'd never.
Because she created this whole scenario whatever by going over there and just like making up this fake story, or not fake, but just like embellishing something that wasn't even true based on her own his passion or her, whatever the fuck the thing was.
Well, I would have chose either of them after my first run with the movie, just because they delayed the movie, the movie part of the movie that was advertised. I would have been fine with either of them dying, but no, I'm going to stick with the therapist, Dr. Drayton. Get your act together, motherfucker. He didn't help.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I mean, this week is kind of it's a wash. Like, honestly, like, you can vote for the therapist just to help Edward catch up. Can I rescind my nomination?
We'll see what people use as the basis. What they use as the basis for voting. That's what I want to see.
All right. So you can vote your heart, vote your conscience. The polls are open on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. Also, our YouTube, the Cherry Picker. So follow, subscribe. If you are new to the Cherry Picker, you can watch us on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us as well. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if you are supporting us on Patreon, you do get to vote there as well. So you can get an extra vote in and early access to episodes. And as a Freddy Krueger tier supporter, you get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark. That's going to be the last week of September. Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 6. Edward, where can they find you on social media?
At Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling. Go to YouTube, the Instagram, the TikTok, and the Letterboxd. How about you, Zack Cherry? Where can they find you?
Zack Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. My main YouTube channel. It's also linked on both of our YouTube channels are linked on the YouTube channel here. I'm Twitter, Zack Cherry 8, Instagram Retro Bitch Face, and I'm also on Letterboxd, Zack Cherry. I can't think of a single thing to say. Or
fuck it.
What is happening next week, Edward?
Well, you're asking me in Chucky's voice, so it makes me think we're doing another Child's Play thing.
Okay, whoa. What? I can't do the voice of her.
Find a voice. Ask me in it.
What are we doing? I don't even know what I'm doing with that voice. What are we doing next week? What are we doing?
Is it the one where there's a force that's taking over and they have to fight?
That doesn't sound familiar.
I'm trying to be as vague as I can to cover as much ground as I can because I don't remember. What are we Zach, what are we doing next week?
We're covering Urban Legend.
Urban Legend. Is it only one or are there plural? It's Urban Legend.
Urban Legend. There's no S on the end. For some reason, the sequels have an S on them. But yes, the original is 25 years old. And that was my attempt to do the Alicia Witt. So I don't know.
That was Alicia Witt!
I have no idea. You put me on the spot. How does one even do an Alicia Witt?
You open your throat.
There you go. You can do it. Spoiler alert for the premise read next week. But yeah, we're really excited about that one. We hope you are too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will be right